Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. Here you will learn all things related to healing from divorce, mind, body, and spirit, so you can create a beautiful new life filled with happiness. I'm Rachel Ruby, author of Divorce to Bliss, divorce coach, speaker, and attorney, and I'm so glad you found me here. Hello and welcome to the Divorce to Bliss podcast. I'm Rachel Ruby, and today we are talking about breathwork for divorce healing. This is part 2 in a 2-part series, and this is going to deal with mastering your mind. So if you are just tuning into this and you have not seen part 1 on awareness of breathwork, I highly advise you to watch that first and come back to this after, because it'll provide a lot of insight. My guest again is Linda Vazin. Linda is the founder of Breath Body Connection, and she has spent over 35 years helping people reconnect with their bodies, release stress, and live with more focus and ease. After working hands-on with the body for more than 2 decades in various modalities, she discovered how powerful the breath is as a bridge between the physical, mental, and emotional self. Her clients have included Navy SEALs, Olympic athletes, Melinda Gates, and many individuals recovering from injuries. Today, she teaches a variety of breathwork techniques, from calming restorative practices to dynamic activating ones used by professionals to reduce stress, improve productivity, and sharpen mental clarity. In her coaching programs, Linda integrates breathwork with cognitive and somatic practices to help clients return to a state of balance and regain the motivation and energy to create a life they truly want and build lives far bigger and freer than they ever imagined. So welcome back to the podcast, Linda.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. Again, this is part 2. So you are going to take us on a dive a little deeper into maybe the science and the reasons behind breathwork and why it helps do what it does. So let's jump in, and we'll start off with, I'd love you to tell us the difference between mouth and nose breathing and how each has different effects on the body.
This is great research by James Nestor. We talked about his book, Breath, but he did a study for 2.5 weeks where he plugged his nose, him and his buddy, and they breathed through their mouth, and found out that his sleep apnea had gotten worse. Energy level went down. He couldn't focus very well. And then they did the opposite, where they taped their mouth and did nose breathing for 2.5-3 weeks, and everything switched. His focus increased. We talked a little bit about problem solving, memory, energy level went up, and his blood pressure went down. His sleep apnea went away. So there is a huge difference between mouth and nose breathing. He also talked about shallow breathing, which is when we breathe very shallow and just into our hearts and back up, which caused almost the same kind of symptoms because it keeps us in fight or flight. And when we start doing deep diaphragmatic breaths, again, we tried that exercise in the last podcast. Our heart rate starts coming down. We actually start becoming more connected, not only to our body, but our heart. So there is heart rate variability. At the same time, when we slow down our breath and start breathing very deeply into our diaphragm, what happens is that blood starts diverting into a certain area in our brain where we can actually make good decisions. It's called the prefrontal cortex. This is where we can think clearly, we can make better decisions. And talking about divorce, I think when I was going through my divorce, I was in such fight or flight that I was just breathing so rapidly that, again, when you are breathing that rapidly, blood's going into your amygdala, which is your fear center. And when you're there, your rational mind is not present. So when we are, shallow breathing and fight or flight, and we're trying to make really big decisions in our life, it doesn't work. So breath work is really important to bring you back to center by slowing down your breath. They say that coherent breathing 5 breaths per minute is, some people say it's like God's breath. It's bringing you back to your center, because normally we breathe 15 breaths per minute during the daily life when we're not really thinking. But when we get anxious, it could go up to 25, 30 breaths per minute, meaning you're just breathing down here and back up, very shallow breathing. But when we slow it down to 5 or 6 breaths per minute, we come back to being able to think more clearly and connecting and getting grounded and centered.
I've never heard that. That is interesting. So normally we breathe about 15 breaths a minute. And yes, when you are aware of this and you learn to slow it down, you can breathe 5 breaths a minute, and then that sends the blood to a completely different place. So you get out of that fight or flight. That is incredible.
Yes.
and that's just all by doing breath work. That's not taking a pill. It's not, that's amazing.
Breath work is absolutely, I never cease to, I know we talked about this, I never cease to get amazed by how powerful it is. But a couple of ways to really understand how powerful it is it's the only autonomic system in our body that we have control over. Just think about all the processes that are going on within your body. You're digesting food, you're even creation of a baby. You know how many thousands of processes are going on, and the mother really doesn't have to do anything. I mean, she can rest and eat healthy, but the body knows exactly what to do. Those are all autonomic systems. Breath is the only autonomic system that we have control over. So that shows you, if you really connect with your breath and understand it and start using it properly, how powerful it could be in your life in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, that it does show you that. And I think it's amazing. Like you say, it's really one of the things we have control over, yet most of us don't realize or don't know that they can change it to change the way that our bodies receive blood and other states of being, anxiety, stress, fear. And that's amazing. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. A lot of times when I tell people I do breath work, they laugh at me. They're like, well, we're breathing anyways. Yes, you are. But depending on how you're breathing, you could actually put yourself into an anxious state.
Right. It's amazing. Wow. It's so powerful. Let's talk a little bit about Wim Hof. Many people may not know who he is and how his work on breath helps to teach us to control that autonomic nervous system. I know many years ago, I discovered him, and he, for many people who may not have heard of him, he is the guy who has trained people to jump into freezing cold, frigid waters and be able to stay there for a while, all by controlling their breath. And so he really is very well known, and he's done a lot of work on this topic. So please enlighten us a little bit about that.
Yes, he is the perfect example of how powerful your breath can be. He has broken 26 world records. He stayed under ice water for 1 hour and 53 minutes just by regulating his breath. He regulated the temperature of his body. So through his breath, him and a group of people also, one of the things that fascinated me is that they were injected with these toxins that created certain symptoms with other people, like flu-like symptoms, headaches, nausea, fatigue. And him and his group of people that do breath work, they actually use their breath to reduce the effects of the toxins on their body, where they didn't get the same symptoms that other people that were injected with the same toxins did. So again, all these things is when you understand how powerful your breath is and connect with it, it's the most powerful tool that we have. It's just whether, closing the gap between knowing and actually doing the breath work is the only thing I would like to discover. I'd like to question so many people to find out why, if they know something is so great, they wouldn't do it.
You would be a very wealthy woman if you discovered that, right? Because
I know
that you can apply that to so many things, right? It's almost look at the food in this country. Look at what is, sold as nutritious, and we go into any grocery store except, the really healthy ones, and look at the things that they're trying to get you to buy. They have all these chemicals and all these bad ingredients, and they're called food, right? And same with some of the fast food, all the fast food restaurants. I don't eat fast food, but you look at their ingredients, and it's just scary but it's affordable. And so a lot of people, I think, know, I shouldn't feed my kids this hamburger, or I shouldn't feed them these potato chips and this junk from the market, but it's cheap, so I do it. And easy. I don't know. It's easy. Exactly. It's easy. Everything, when something's easy, why make it more hard and difficult for yourself, right? But again, this all comes down to mental health, physical health, emotional health. I mean, and your spirituality as well, because when you feel good, when you are breathing properly, when you are putting healthy food into your body, when you are going outside and getting fresh air, when you are, doing so many things that are, good for us. And again, most people know what's good for you. But when you do those things, when you practice those things, the changes that you feel are incredible. Mm-hmm. And so I am with you 100%. When I started my coaching journey, it didn't cease to amaze me how many people were feeling this fear, this all these negative emotions, and knew that they were supposed to heal, wanted to heal, but weren't taking any steps to it. And, over time, I've learned to help people see, just like you do with the breath work, that you can do it. You just have to commit to the journey, really. And that's humans, a lot of humans, everything's so easy to us now, right? I mean, you and I, when we were growing up, we had to go to the card catalog in the library and look up a topic and then go find the book and then go to another book. And now it's like, hey Siri, hey AI, what's the answer to this question? And bam, you have it in a nanosecond. So why get up? Why get up and cook dinner when you can call, go on your app, order Uber, DoorDash, Uber Eats, whatever. So yeah, it's an interesting human conundrum, I think. And I think, as with anything good in life, you have to make an effort.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to bring up something. It's a little different from breath, but on the topic, when I work with my clients, when we want to close that gap between knowing and doing, what I recommend is to use your body. Because just imagine, when you wake up in the morning, you don't think about going and making coffee if you drink coffee, or brushing your teeth, things that are so routine. Your body already knows what to do. So you just get up and your body leads you. But in order to make that a habit, you have to consciously, continuously make your mind move your body. And then once it becomes a habit, the body already automatically goes and does it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. Again, it's practice. It's all practice.
Practice. Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
I love that. Why don't you educate us a little bit on the difference between the different brain wave states and how those can affect your healing journey?
So we have 5 different brainwave states. One is gamma, beta, alpha, theta, and delta. Gamma is when you are in a flow state, when you are producing something, but there's no stress involved. For example, an Olympic athlete, that they're doing something magnificent, but there's no stress. They're so in the flow. Beta is more our everyday state, where we're problem solving, we're working, we're doing. And it's really easy. Most of us stay in that beta state almost all the time, especially these days when you end up working, 40, 60-hour weeks. It's really easy to get into burnout. Alpha state is this calm state. I don't know if we talked about it in this episode or the other episode. You said you like doing breath work in the morning. It's that liminal state when you wake up, where you're awake, but you're still not active. And it's really important to be in that state as well. There's theta, where you are here but not here, very calm state. That's where, when we do an hour breath work with my clients, they go into that state where they're just like out of body, conscious but not conscious. And then there's delta, where it's when you're sleeping. For most of us, we go from beta to delta. We go back and forth. And that is not a good way to live. It's not good for your brain, because our bodies, just imagine, our bodies need so many different things. Like, we need to eat, we need to walk, we need to work, we need all these different things. With the brain, a lot of us, we don't think about the different states that it needs to be in. So a lot of us work, and then from beta, we go straight into delta. And we use, I know I use, like, watching TV, or maybe having a drink. I don't drink, but some people use drinking something to bring you into that alpha state where your brain needs to relax. However, there's a big difference between going into that alpha state mindfully versus using a distraction. When you teach your brain how to go into that alpha state, it actually trains it so that you can do it on command. Not only you can do it on command, but also you start regulating your nervous system. Because if we go watch TV, we're not regulating, we're not bringing the nervous system back to baseline anymore.
Right.
We're giving our brain a break, but we're not giving our nervous system a break. So it's really important to get yourself from beta to alpha to delta, and maybe the other states, but at least having that alpha theta state is really important to create time to do some breath work throughout the day, in the morning, in the middle of the day, at night. And that was something I wanted to talk about later. Like, how do you incorporate breath work into your day so you can actually intentionally take your brain through these different states?
Right. Well, let's get into that. But the thing I wanted to mention about what you said with the different states that's interesting to me is you mentioned that most people go between beta and delta, and they don't have like an alpha or a theta or something where and I find that so many people, I mean, I remember, my kids doing this when they were little. It's like maybe watching TV and then going to bed, and your brain is so stimulated from what's happening, from focusing on a story in front of you, from the lights, from all these different things. And maybe while you're sitting there, you're getting a text message, or you're, getting up to get something to eat, that to go, I agree 100%, but to have you explain it scientifically is so wonderful to hear, because to go from that state of being so stimulated to just, okay, I'm going to lay down and go to bed is really counterproductive. I mean, I will turn off the lights and turn on a candle or a very soft light before I go to bed and just sit for a few minutes and think about my day, what I'm grateful for, take some deep breaths. And I also have some music. You can find the rhythms of these waves, right? These states, these brainwave states.
Solfeggio,
yeah,
solfeggio music,
yeah,
frequencies.
And I love that. Yeah, and I'll frequencies, and I will listen to those every night before I go to bed. Sometimes I'll leave them on, I'll fall asleep to them, and they'll just go off automatically. But it really, those sounds are really calming too. And so if you are maybe having a hard time in, or you do your breath work, that maybe you can incorporate that. Because I love that. I think it's just so relaxing, and it just tells my body that it's time to wind down now. So
right. And this sounds, like you said, that is so important. The sound actually works on a vibrational level on your whole body. So that the combination is a great way to take you into, a alpha or theta state. And when you do that intentionally, it becomes easier, because I do work with quite a few professionals if you're going into court, or if you have, a big presentation, when you have mastered your mind to go from beta to alpha, you could stand there for a few minutes before your presentation and put yourself in that state where if you use distractions to distract your mind, you don't have access to that.
Yeah.
That's mastery of the mind.
That's so true. And I'm a perfect example of that, because many years ago when I took the bar exam, I was nervous, I was so nervous. And so I went to somebody who did some hypnotherapy on me, which is, I think that involves breath work as well, even though they might not be doing it, because you do get into a relaxed state and your breathing changes. And so they taught me how to focus inward, so that before I sat down for that exam, and in between, the parts in between, because it's an 18-hour, 3-day test, 6 hours a day. And then you have a break, 3 hours and a break each day. So in the in-between time and before, I knew how to calm myself. Back then, I didn't know anything about breath work this was a long time ago. And so it really taught me to be aware and to be able to master that before I went into that exam, into that section of the exam, and really just calm down so that I could pass. So exactly. I know how wonderful
to get into your right brain.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a great thing. So yes, let's go into how we can implement the breath work into our daily lives. I know in the first in part one, we talked a little bit about that, but please let's expand on that.
I would highly recommend, just imagine you have a baseline where you are peaceful, you can operate. And as years go by, when we keep adding stress to our life and our nervous system gets more and more in a state of anxiety, whether it's childhood trauma or just stress, you come to a certain level of stress. In order to bring it down, for some people, if they're already starting being anxious, it's going to take some extra work. But I would highly recommend doing breathwork practice in the morning and in the evening. Even if you commit to 2 minutes, then go to 3, then 5, and eventually 20 minutes in the morning. And maybe, like you said, like before bed, 5 minutes or 15 minutes is ideal. Besides that, becoming really aware of your breath throughout the day. Like, when do you start breathing? When do you start breathing very shallow? When do you hold your breath? And when you become conscious of it, even those moments where you reset your breath can help start your breath over again. Because a lot of times I'm walking and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't even, I stopped breathing. So I take a few strong, deep breaths, and then my breath goes back to normal. For a lot of people that I work with, they're in the professional field, I ask them to make their hours, if they can, every hour or every other hour to 55 minutes instead of an hour. Every, hour after 55 minutes, you get up, you walk around a little bit, you get some circulation going, and you sit down and you do 1 or 2 minutes of breath work. I mean, we tried that in the last session, and you saw it only takes a few minutes for your body to relax. And having said that, when we're really, really anxious, and you slow down, it's so uncomfortable at first, because then you have to sit with all that anxiety. But with breath work, if you start slow, it will change. That your nervous system will slowly start to relax, and the anxiety will become less and less. But you have to go through that discomfort of just sitting still with the anxiety at first.
Right.
How else? Just making your breath your best friend. Honestly, it's with you. It's so powerful. Just using it.
Right.
I'm actually creating some screensavers where you could put it on your desk or on your phone with different breathwork modalities. They have thousands of different breathwork modalities, so that, if you want at the end of the hour, you look at your screen and it'll take you through a different kind of breathwork. So
I love that. Wow. You have to let me know when you have those out, because that is, will that be on your website when you get those finished?
Yes. I'm trying to create a library, and for the first few months while I'm building the library, is going to have free access. So I'll definitely let you know.
Okay. So yes, and I didn't mention on part 1, but obviously I'm going to put all of the links to reach Linda up here on the podcast for you to see. If you are watching, if you are listening, they'll be in the show notes, so you can find her. If you want to experience some coaching in breathwork, I highly recommend Linda. Obviously, she is a plethora of knowledge, and I'm so glad that you got to be here with me for 2 episodes. So we learned a lot about breathwork. And is there anything else you want to add about it before we sign off for this time?
I'm so fascinated by breath work. I'm a true believer in whether it's slow breathing to connecting to yourself, or, dynamic activating breath work to really move energy and create transformation. Whatever it is, I've literally seen miracles happen. So don't take it lightly. Learn and use breath work in your life. Connect to your breath.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your wisdom with us. Yeah. And if those of you watching or listening like this episode and the other episodes in the Divorce to Bliss podcast series, please do me the honor of subscribing to the channel, liking, commenting, and sharing, because you never know, there may be someone else out there who can benefit from what we talk about here on this podcast. And thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Linda.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Really appreciate it.